So in the past, we've used numbers. We've used whole numbers like 21 or 25 to represent somebody's age, or 188 to represent somebody's height. And we also used other numbers like maybe 80.2, some numbers that have a decimal in it. And we can use these to represent more precise numbers like maybe somebody's weight. Or we could even be more precise with their height and say that they were 188.2 centimeters or whatever. We've never actually used a collection of integers together. So for example, when we've created a variable in the past, and let's say we had a variable called age, we would go and set that age to the number 25 like this. Or if we had somebody's height, we would set the height equal to 188.3 like this if it was a decimal. But there's no way that we had one particular variable. Like for example, I didn't have a variable called Ryan and I didn't set it equal to multiple values. So I didn't set it equal to 25 and then also put 188.2 centimeters in here as well. Now today we're going to actually deal with a thing in Python called lists. And lists in Python allow us to go and do things like this. So if we have an example, so an example could be somebody's name, and maybe the name Ryan has some attributes to it. So I have a weight, and I have a name, and I have an age, and I have a date of birth, and many other pieces of information that not only I have, but that not just me, but everyone has. And we can represent this in just one single variable. But this doesn't have to be just tied to one individual. It could be to a certain entity. So for example, I could have a list if I was part of a college or a school, and let's say that I was in 5th or 6th class in secondary school, or if I was in 1st or 2nd year in college, there would be multiple other students that are in the same class as me. So I could make a variable and I could call it students, and I could set this variable equal to all the names of the students in that class. So to do this, we're going to use 2 square brackets. Now, if we were naming this, it would probably be a good idea to name it, something more detailed than just students. I could say, the name of the school, and then maybe the class, and then students. But for this example, there's no need to worry about naming our variables really detailed names. We're just going to use students for this. And inside our square brackets, we're going to type in the names of the students. So the first student is Ryan, the second student is Chris, and the third student will be Amy. It's a very small class. There's only 3 students in it, but we could add as many as we want. Now, with this variable students, we can print out all the different names of the students that we want. So, for example, if we wanted to go and find out all the students, we could just say print and then students. And if we run this, then we get displayed out Ryan, Chris, and Amy. But it has this funny look about it. It still has the names surrounded in quotes, and it has square brackets on the outside. So it doesn't look that pretty, but we're going to change that in a minute. But along with just accessing all the students that is in this current Python list, we can access individual students. So let's say, for example, we wanted to access the first element. Now, we can do this by typing in our 2 square brackets and typing in whatever index we want. So I said we wanted to get the first element. Now, the first element being the name Ryan. But if we actually type in 1 here, and you might think, okay, we're going to get Ryan. But if I run this, you'll see that we actually don't get Ryan. We get Chris. And that's because, as I said before, Python starts counting at 0. So in this case, Ryan is actually 0, and Chris is 1, and Amy is 2. So if I want to get the first index of students, I'd have to put 0, and now I can see Ryan. And if I was to put 2 here, I would see Amy. Now, we did display all the variables inside our students variable, but they were kind of ugly because they were in a format that had all the different strings or variables inside them. They were showing the quotes, and they're also showing the square brackets. So to get around this, we can actually use the for loop that we've learnt about in our previous video. And if we say for, and then we say something like name, and as you know, if you've watched one of the previous videos on the for loop, we can name this whatever we want, but I'm just going to call it name, and then we're going to say in students, and follow that up by a colon, and then on the next line, go and print out the name. And this will print out all the names of the students one by one, and it'll actually put them onto a new line. So you can see when we run this, we get Ryan, Chris, and Amy all printed out on separate lines.